what if the absolute worst thing you can do during a major crisis is actually try to fix it?
I mean, that sounds completely backward, right?
Right, because we are totally conditioned to believe that life is essentially just, an engineering problem. Like you identify a flaw, you grab your tools, you apply a fix, and boom, you take control.
Exactly. We love control.
We really do. But today, we are looking at a stack of sources that suggest our obsession with being in control, whether that is like micromanaging a project at work or hovering over our kids or trying to fundamentally change our partners, is actually the primary engine driving our misery.
Yeah, and the materials we're unpacking today for this deep dive, they cover a massive range. I mean, we've got everything from modern psychoanalysis all the way back to ancient philosophy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the wild thing is they all converge on this one. Incredibly counterintuitive psychological logic. And that is true freedom and genuine effectiveness in navigating reality. It comes from the radical act of just allowing everything to happen.
Allowing everything to happen.
Yeah.
It's so hard to even wrap your head around.
It really is.
So our mission for this deep dive is to completely dismantle this, what the sources call a director complex, that most of us are just walking around with all day. We are going to explore the actual mechanics of why fighting reality only multiplies your suffering.
Right.
And I can promise you, the listener, by the time we wrap up this conversation, you are going to have a completely different toolkit for handling disappointment. We are talking about drastically reducing your daily stress, optimizing how you collaborate with people at work, and navigating those messy relationships without feeling like, an exhausted firefighter just constantly running from blaze to blaze.
Which is how so many of us feel, honestly. So to really grasp the sheer power of allowing things to happen, we kind of have to start by looking inward, right? At our own mental processing.
Okay, where do we start?
Well, the sources dive into this concept called ironic process theory. And it basically explains why our instinct to forcefully push away a bad situation or a negative emotion, it practically guarantees that those things are going to consume us.
That feels so entirely backward to human nature.
It does.
Like if you find yourself sinking in a pit of quicksand, every instinct in your body just screams at you to thrash around and fight your way out.
Oh, 100%.
But the cruel irony of quicksand is that the physical exertion, the struggling, that is exactly what pulls you under faster.
And it operates the exact same way in the human brain. I mean, ironic process theory highlights this fundamental flaw in how we try to suppress thoughts.
How so?
Well, if you tell yourself right now, under no circumstances am I going to think about a pink monkey eating a banana.
Boom, I'm thinking about it.
Right. Your brain is instantly forced into a paradoxical loop. Because in order to make sure you aren't thinking about the monkey, a part of your brain actually has to continuously check in and ask, hey, am I thinking about the monkey?
Oh, that's wild. So the monitoring system itself requires the image of the monkey to stay active.
Exactly. So our brains are literally biologically wired to backfire the second we demand total control over an unwanted thought. You just end up inadvertently locking your focus onto the exact thing you hate.
Okay, so think about how this applies to like a massive sudden change at work or a huge personal setback. Say you get passed over for a promotion, or a major relationship just completely shatters.
Right, a crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you tell yourself, I refuse to accept this failure. I won't allow this betrayal to ruin my year.
By declaring war on the reality of that failure, your entire psychological apparatus just gets anchored to the pain.
Because of the pink monkey effect.
Exactly. You're dedicating all your mental bandwidth to resisting the present moment. You aren't actually plotting a path forward, you're just pouring fuel on a fire. You really only experience that deep, twisted internal friction when you are obsessively attached to the idea that reality must conform to the specific script you had in your head.
And the sources highlight this incredible historical anchor for this exact mechanism. They bring up the story of Su Dongpo.
Oh, yeah, from ancient China.
Right. And to put his situation into, modern terms, imagine being the absolute most celebrated CEO in your industry. You are operating at the absolute peak of wealth, status, influence. And then suddenly, due to this brutal political scandal, I think it was called the Wu Tai poetry incident, he is just stripped of everything.
Like overnight.
Literally overnight. He's exiled to this rural wasteland in Huangzhou and forced to become a subsistence farmer.
And for most people, a catastrophic loss of identity and status like that, that triggers a complete collapse.
Oh, absolutely.
People will spend decades just bitterly fighting the injustice of it, right?
Yeah.
Totally consumed by what they used to be and what they lost.
But he took a completely different path.
Yeah.
He didn't waste a single ounce of energy thrashing in the quicksand or, screaming at the unfairness of his demotion. He just allowed the reality of his new life to be what it was.
Which is so hard to do. Super hard. There's this vivid historical image from the sources of him getting caught in this massive rainstorm. And instead of raging at the weather or mourning his lost luxury carriages and his old life, he just walks through the mud wearing these rough straw sandals and a farmer's cloak.
Wow.
Yeah, and because he allowed the storm to happen without resistance, the rain didn't humiliate him. It actually cleansed him. He used that exact experience to write some of his most famous, transcendent poetry about walking through life's turbulence with an open heart.
And the crucial thing to note there is that the event itself, the demotion, the sudden poverty, the freezing rain, it didn't magically change because he accepted it.
Right, he was still poor and wet.
Exactly. What changed was the total elimination of his internal friction. He just stopped treating reality as an enemy that needed to be defeated.
That actually raises a fascinating transition point because, okay, applying this philosophy to your own internal struggles, your own career setbacks, that's one thing. If I want to walk in the rain and accept my fate, fine.
But the friction multiplies tenfold when we project this need for control outward onto the people closest to us.
Oh, absolutely. And the sources describe this outward projection as the God view illusion.
The God view illusion. Okay, break that down.
It's this arrogant, deeply ingrained subconscious belief that we are the master directors of life. Like we are equipped with the perfect script for how everyone around us should behave.
We all do it.
We do. And nowhere is this illusion more destructive than in the dynamic between parents and children.
Oh, parenting feels like the ultimate test of this theory. I mean, you literally create a human being, so the default setting is assuming you have to mold them, right?
Right. But the literature offers this really chilling analogy here. It's the story of the gardener and the pine tree.
I love this one.
So picture a gardener who claims to have this absolute pure love for a young pine tree in his yard. He has this vision of this tree growing into a perfectly manicured symmetrical sphere.
Like a perfect circle.
Yeah. So every day he takes his shears and obsessively clips the branches to maintain this circular shape.
But a pine tree's entire biological imperative is to shoot straight upward toward the canopy.
Exactly. It desperately wants to grow vertically. But the gardener insists on the circle. He is constantly forcing the tree's nature into submission. And eventually, the trauma of being repeatedly cut back against its nature, it literally kills the tree.
It's so sad.
And then the gardener stands over the dead branches, weeping, saying, "I loved you so much. I gave you so much attention. Why did you die?"
And the tragic reality is that the gardener never actually loved the tree. He loved the circular fantasy he projected onto the tree.
Yes. That is the very essence of the God view illusion. Whenever a parent or like a manager at work or a mentor uses the phrase, "I'm doing this for your own good," but their actions require the other person to suppress their true nature, that is a form of soft violence.
Soft violence. That's a heavy term.
It is, but it's accurate. If you are demanding a naturally artistic child become a rigid corporate lawyer or, forcing a quiet, analytical employee to act like a boisterous salesperson, you are handcrafting a dynamic that is entirely built on resentment.
I can hear parents and managers listening to this right now and pushing back hard.
Oh, for sure.
Because, if you are responsible for someone's development, guidance is literally your job description. If a child decides they just want to play video games all day instead of doing their algebra homework, allowing that to happen feels like neglect, not enlightenment.
Right.
So where is the line between necessary guidance and toxic control?
To locate that boundary, the sources introduce the work of psychologist Alfred Adler. And Adler proposed this revolutionary framework called the separation of tasks.
Separation of tasks.
Yeah. His core argument is that virtually all interpersonal conflict, the screaming matches over homework, the micromanagement at the office, it all originates from one person aggressively interfering with another person's task.
That begs the question of how you actually separate those tasks, though, when two lives or a team's goals at work are so deeply intertwined.
The diagnostic question you always have to ask is, who ultimately bears the direct consequences of the outcome?
Okay, so let's apply this to the algebra homework scenario.
Right. If the homework isn't done, who suffers? The student gets the failing grade, the student misses out on the academic opportunity, and the student deals with the limitation of their choices later in life. Therefore, learning is exclusively the child's task.
But the psychological trap is that parents view a child's report card as a public evaluation of their own parenting. The parent's ego gets totally tangled up in the child's performance.
Oh, absolutely. The moment a parent makes the child's academic success about their own reputation or their own anxiety, they have staged a hostile takeover of the child's psychological territory.
Wow. A hostile takeover.
Adler argues that a parent's actual isolated task in this scenario is simply to provide a supportive environment. You buy the desk, you offer to hire a tutor if they ask for help, you communicate unconditional support, and then you stop. You step back behind your boundary.
And when you refuse to cross that boundary, you actually remove the friction. Because so much of teenage rebellion isn't actually about hating algebra.
No, not at all.
It's a desperate attempt to reclaim ownership of their own lives.
Yeah.
Like they will self-sabotage just to prove they're the ones holding the steering wheel.
And you see this exact same thing in the workplace, too.
Oh, definitely.
Like if a manager won't delegate, if they constantly micromanage the how of a project, instead of just setting the goal and letting the team execute their task, the team's efficiency just tanks. They stop taking ownership.
Because they're not allowed to own it.
Exactly. The sources actually weave in a really powerful thought from Friedrich Nietzsche here. He said, "Every day not danced is a betrayal of life."
I like that.
Yeah, and if we apply that to Adler's framework, dancing is your personal task. It is how you express your existence, how the audience judges your dancing. That is entirely their task. If you spend your energy trying to control their judgment, you just ruin your own dance.
That makes total sense.
So in the context of parenting, stepping back gives the child the psychological oxygen they need. Freedom is the only soil where genuine responsibility can take root, because a child will only take ownership of their successes if they are fully allowed to own their failures.
That is a staggering paradigm shift. Because the child whose dance was constantly corrected, whose tasks were constantly managed, they eventually grow up.
They do.
And when they do, they carry that exact same God view illusion straight into the dating pool, which directly explains why this urge to control heavily infects romantic relationships too. We just pivot from trying to mold children to trying to fundamentally change our partners.
Yes, and the psychoanalytic perspective provided in the sources is incredibly revealing on this front. Because in psychoanalysis, it's widely understood that our intimate romantic relationships frequently serve as, miniature theaters where we unconsciously project our unresolved childhood dynamics.
Right, so we aren't just interacting with the person sitting across from us at the dinner table. No, we are interacting with the ghosts of our early caregivers. We fall into this trap of basically dating our own unmet needs.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it.
Right, we expect this new person to step in and serve as the ultimate savior for the inner child who felt unheard or unsafe or unloved. Let me use an analogy here to make this mechanism clear, because I think it's so important.
Go for it.
We stop treating our partner as an autonomous human being, and we start treating them like a software patch. We try to use their affection, their behavior, or their compliance as code to cover up the glitchy, gaping holes in our own internal operating system.
That analogy perfectly captures the dysfunction, because no human being can seamlessly patch another person's deep-seated trauma, right? So the code inevitably fails.
And when the partner fails to perfectly heal us, we double down on control.
We nag, we manipulate, we try to force them to fit the mold we desperately need. Actually, Carl Jung explored a fascinating case study that illustrates the extreme end of this exact behavior.
Is this the patient who is compulsively drawn to those unreliable playboys?
Yes, exactly. So Jung treated this woman who repeatedly and disastrously fell in love with highly irresponsible men. And with every single new partner, she was utterly convinced she was the one who could finally change him.
But she couldn't.
No, every single time the relationship ended in heartbreak and total chaos. And Jung identified that she was entirely consumed by a psychological loop known as repetition compulsion.
Repetition compulsion is such a tragic mechanism. You endlessly recreate the conditions of your own suffering, somehow expecting a different outcome. But why does the subconscious mind do that?
Well, the subconscious mind is essentially trying to travel back in time to write a victorious ending to a really painful childhood story.
Oh, wow.
So in this patient's case, her father had been severely irresponsible and absent. As a child, she was powerless to change him. So as an adult, she subconsciously sought out men who shared her father's exact flaws. She was trying to mold these men into responsible partners as a way to retroactively heal her original wound.
Like trying to fix her dad by proxy?
Exactly. It was a subconscious quest for revenge on her trauma. The logic is, if she could just fix one irresponsible man, it would finally prove she was worthy of love all along.
But instead, she's just burning her entire life down, trying to fix the past by micromanaging the present.
Right.
It brings to mind this grasping sand metaphor from the research, which I absolutely love. If you hold a handful of dry sand and you panic, and you squeeze your fist super tight to trap every single grain, the pressure just forces the sand to shoot out from between your fingers.
The harder you squeeze, the faster you lose it.
Exactly. The only physical way to keep the sand in your hand is to completely relax your muscles and leave your palm wide open.
And maintaining an open palm in a relationship is the absolute pinnacle of allowing everything to happen. It forces you to stop outsourcing your emotional stability to someone else. Instead of endlessly trying to rewrite your partner's code, you turn that analytical energy inward. You take responsibility for patching your own glitches.
The picture we are painting here is incredibly cohesive, but I have to admit it is also really daunting.
Oh, it's terrifying at first.
Right. Because we have established that micromanaging a child stunts their growth. We have seen how trying to fundamentally change a partner destroys the connection. We know we can't control the economy, the weather, or a sudden career demotion. If the answer to all of this is simply letting go, how do we actually implement this radical acceptance without just becoming passive, apathetic victims of circumstance?
That is the crucial distinction. Allowing everything to happen is definitively not about surrender or apathy.
Okay, what is it then?
It is about a fierce, laser-like reallocation of your energy. You basically start funding the wars you can never win, and you pour all of your capital into the only territory you actually control. The sources link this directly to Stoicism, specifically the teachings of Epictetus.
The Stoics viewed this concept of going with the flow not as a weakness, but as the ultimate form of psychological alignment.
Right.
They realized that trying to fight reality is literally like trying to convince a river to flow backward. Epictetus observed that human misery is almost entirely generated by our demand that the universe bend to our specific wishes. So his cure was to train the mind to wish for things to happen exactly as they actually do.
And achieving that level of acceptance requires a practical framework, which the sources categorize as the three businesses.
The three businesses.
Yes, this is the ultimate operational guide for daily life. According to this model, every single event, frustration, and interaction in the universe falls into one of three categories.
Okay, lay them out.
First, there is other people's business.
Let's ground that in a typical day. Other people's business is whether your coworker decides to be passive-aggressive during a meeting, or whether your spouse remembers to take out the trash, or what your neighbors think of your lawn.
Exactly. And the rule is, you have absolutely zero jurisdiction over any of it. The second category is God's business, or nature's business. These are the macro forces, like a sudden thunderstorm during your wedding, a global economic downturn that impacts your industry, or just the inevitable aging of your body.
Again, completely out of our hands. We cannot legislate the weather.
We cannot. So the third and final category is your own business.
Which is?
This is a remarkably narrow but infinitely deep territory. It consists exclusively of your thoughts, your conscious reactions to adversity, your integrity, and your choice to heal your own psychological wounds.
It sounds so incredibly simple when you lay it out like that, yet we spend, 95% of our lives violating these exact boundaries?
Oh, easily. I mean, if you wake up every morning and immediately start trying to manage other people's business by stressing over your boss's mood, and then you try to manage God's business by agonizing over a looming recession, you will live your entire life in a state of sheer exhaustion.
You're that frantic firefighter again.
Exactly. Running from a burning building to a forest fire, screaming at the flames for being hot.
And the fires just keep getting bigger.
Always.
But the moment you consolidate all that scattered, anxious energy and you aggressively direct it solely toward your own business, the entire world fundamentally shifts.
It really does.
Like the workplace stops being this battlefield of egos you have to manage. Your home stops being a theater where you have to direct your spouse's every move. It becomes a space where you finally have the bandwidth to enjoy the reality unfolding right in front of you.
Yeah, by relinquishing the need to write the script for reality, you unlock the ability to actually engage with the present moment. You allow yourself to be a complete, flawed person operating in a complex world, rather than an exhausted dictator failing to maintain a perfect fantasy.
To synthesize the journey we've taken through these sources today, the secret to a frictionless life is hanging up your director's hat. You have to clearly separate your tasks from your children, granting them the real dignity of their own failures. You have to stop treating your romantic partners as software patches for your childhood wounds. You have to mind your own business and graciously let the universe mind its own.
It's all about keeping an open palm.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, here is a final thought for you to carry into your day. Tomorrow, when you feel that familiar spike of anxiety hitting your chest because a coworker drops the ball, or your partner says the wrong thing, or a plan just falls apart, pause for 2 seconds. Ask yourself, whose task is this? Are you frantically trying to write and direct the script for a movie that you are only supposed to be acting in? Life is never going to be a clean, predictable mathematical equation. It is messy, it is wild, and the only way to truly enjoy the ride is to open your palm and let the sand rest.